Meet the Hog, a robust rover capable of traversing the harsh planetary terrain, take flight to cover large distances, and sporting all the amenities required to survive and thrive while on the go. Hello everybody and welcome back to Space Engineers and the next Spotlight. In this Spotlight, we are featuring the Hog. This is my mobile base, my mobile platform. It has everything you need to survive on a planet, I think, and allows you to be mobile and move along wherever you want to go. Now you'll notice that there are 3 of them sitting here because this went through a few revisions through live testing on a actual multiplayer server, and I'll go over the changes really quickly and why they were made. The first one here, this is the Mark 1. Now it features some guns for taking down asteroids, as well as maybe taking out cyber hounds if you have those things turned on, as well as maybe even players if you're doing some PvP or some battle or things of that nature. It's got large wheels, and 6 of them, purely for the reason that I wanted this to be quite robust and be able to cover large terrain, but also have redundancy. So if, like, say one of these wheels got broken off or an asteroid knocked it off, both those things actually happened to me, that you could still keep driving if you needed to, find a safe space to stop, and then replace the wheel. Now in replacing the wheel, these pistons here, along with the landing gear, are meant to allow you to raise the entire rover up on them, giving you the ability to actually replace the wheel and the chassis if need be, because now you can actually just pop the wheels back on without replacing the entire thing, which is kind of cool. But they still have to have clearance, right? You still have to give them the space they need to be added in. So those pistons there raise the whole thing up, give you the clearance to replace the wheels, and away you go. And they work quite well, except for the pistons and landing gear have issues from time to time through different builds of the server, and they were causing some explosions, some badness going on. So those will be replaced in the next build, as you'll see. This version here has a hangar bay door that sports some more pistons that can be extended out so that it can touch the ground here. Now the idea with this was I was hoping to be able to build a rover that I could drive up this and into the back. Sadly, I found out that when you have pistons extended, the part that extends is not solid for vehicled wheels. You personally can walk on them. So when this is extended, you can actually walk on them and they're fine. But a vehicle that with wheels, when you roll through them, it just falls right through. Whoop. So that didn't work out. So yeah, so that that ultimately that design went away. And then this also has solar panels to recharge a lot of the batteries that are inside, as well as there's a kickstart and emergency reactor as well. We'll get into the internals when we get to the last one, because that's basically the finalized version. But yeah, so there was the first version. This is the Mark 1. It did get me a little bit along the way. It worked out quite well for a little while. These things here ultimately caused way too much trouble, and I had to get rid of them. So we move on to Mark 2, and here is the next kind of iteration as I play tested this thing. You'll notice now that it is without those pistons, right? Those have been removed. I discovered that not only did these have just issues when you know, with game mechanics and bugs for a little while, but you really have to keep the wheel wells around these wheels completely free of any blocks, because they will catch when you turn the wheels, or and in this case too, the landing gear actually caught on the ground as I was driving along and caused some serious problems. So in this design, I removed everything. You can see here that they are completely 100% clear and free of anything around them. This worked out a lot better, and I would highly suggest if you're building wheeled vehicles like that, that you keep these wells completely free of any blocks, or else you might just be asking for trouble. You'll notice that I did start to do a bit more of a aesthetical design as well in here. You see the rounded bottom and some nicer looking things along here for connecting it up, making it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, which I think it looks pretty cool actually. I like the look of that. But yeah, so that's the changes to the chassis. And then the major change that you'll notice here is the addition of the atmospheric thrusters. Now, these were in twofold. One, to replace the loss of these these pistons, because I still need a way to replace the wheels when bad things happen. So now these atmospheric thrusters allow you to hover the ship up off the ground, replace the wheel, and then drop it back to the ground. Works quite well. Also, what these thrusters allow you to do is traverse ground a lot better and faster, right? So you can use them to just, as you're jumping around and say driving really fast and you think you're going to come in too hard, you can turn them on and they'll slow you down, save you from crashing. And actually, this thing is fully flight capable, believe it or not. These thrusters can pick up this entire thing and just fly you around the planet if you so wish. And I play tested that as well, so it actually does work. We've got thrusters, 4 large ones to get you up off the ground and whatever you're carrying, as well as you'll notice that there's thrusters going forward, back, and left and right to make sure that you can maneuver in all different directions. And there's some gyros inside now. Because you'll need that. Actually, there was gyros in that one as well because they really help when you drive. You'll notice too on the back of this one, this has now changed to be just an opening and closing hangar bay door, and this no longer supports. Well, this one was supposed to support but didn't actually, which is why this changed to not support basically allowing you to drive anything in. You need to now, what you put in here basically would be flying machines, right? Like atmospheric machines. Which works really well. And you'll notice too, like that's what these connectors here are for, is you can then hook up your let's say atmospheric flyers or drones or whatever into there. So those are the major changes from the Mark 1 to the Mark 2. Then on to the Mark 3, you'll notice a few more small adjustments. The chassis is pretty much the same. There's just some slight modifications to the look, you'll notice. But basically, it's almost identical as far as the exterior is concerned. The major change is on the inside. So you'll notice on the back here, I've now completely done away with the ramp, and this now sports just a hangar bay, those hangar bay doors. And if I click these, right, they open up. Now, the reason for this, again, was just because of game stability problems. This... believe it or not, this rotor and hangar bay door, like they're both considered two actually separate pieces, and this one here has a separate center of gravity or whatever they call it. And the result of it anyway was when I used the thrusters and I picked the ship up, the entire ship would dip down on the back end. So like it looked like the butt was heavy and it was hanging low and so this actually wouldn't hover straight up off the ground, and so you were constantly adjusting for the fact that the back was hanging low and you had to fly or do whatever you were doing, and it made it really difficult, especially because it would actually drift backwards. It would start flying backwards because these are obviously supposed to be facing straight down, but when it's dipping they were facing slightly in an angle, and it was actually floating the whole thing back. So to fix that particular problem, there are obviously other ways you could fix this problem. You could put like a merge block or a landing gear or something that would allow it to, when you close it up, that you would actually merge it to the same grid, and then it would be part of the same thing, and that would solve that problem. I decided to just go with something simpler and just replaced it right out with these doors, since the whole purpose of that opening and closing hangar bay door was originally to allow things to drive in, which didn't work out anyway. So I just went for something simple, something that had less moving parts, less chance of exploding. So there you go. So this is the final design now. The outside is been basically explained at this point, but yeah, so these buttons here let you open and close these doors, right? Also, let's actually go outside and come in. If you didn't want to use your jetpack, you actually can enter the ship through the back here. This is a pretty cool feature that I like. Little button right here underneath. Opens up a ramp. Now this is obviously a mod. There's a few mods. I should say this isn't a vanilla build. This has mods on it for sure. I can get up onto this ramp. And then I can close the ramp door. Oops. Right, now that lets me come back up. I do like this little kind of viewing platform out here on the back too. Looks this has gone through some revisions as well over the time. It's a much more simple design now because again it was getting bumped around and broken off when I would drive, so I simplified the design and raised things a bit. And to that end, we'll see really how I fix the low to the ground problem in a minute. But yeah, so we got a door that comes in here, and you can also, using this is another mod for a opening and closing staircase, and you can get up into the back of the Rover here. Now this is where I am hiding away the gyros as well as the antenna, and you can get back into here, and if you had some ships attached here, you could do maintenance work on them, right? And then you can come back down into here. Oh, actually, yeah, there was this here was the button to close the ramp when you're in here. Dun, da, da. But yeah, so this is the back of the ship. I really like how that turned out, as well as this. I really wanted there to be a way for you to get into this from the ground level without needing your jetpack, which actually has come in quite handy. I've run out of hydrogen a few times and been really glad that I had the ability to just walk into this ship, because here is the main command console for the Rover, for the Hog, and this is where your med bay is, right? So I said this is basically a complete mobile base platform. So everything you should need should be all in here. There is a refinery. You'll notice underneath here, we've got an assembler built into it. We've got a refinery built into it. You have access to it all from within the ship if you want as well. You can get access to all these different things. And you'll also notice that hidden away back here, there actually is all the different enhancement modules on these as well, right? So I can go into the control panel and kind of show you all of those in a minute here. And then you also have your medical room, and this is all hooked up properly. So you can actually get your hydrogen refilled, your oxygen refilled, your health refilled, all of that kind of stuff from here. And this is obviously where you spawn back in when you come back into the game. And there is the emergency reactor right there. So if you needed to make sure that what I did was I always made sure that there was uranium in here once I found it on the planet, and then I kept it off generally so that it was the backup generator. And then you see here I had all of these batteries built into basically the walkway that allowed you to basically run the ship on these and actually cycle them around, right? I think I needed, in flight mode, it needed a lot more power, and I think I needed all but 2 of them to support flight mode. So I kept a couple in reserve as well. But when you're just driving, actually, you could turn off most of these and just keep them charged. Now, once we're in here, you'll notice there's a couple other features in here. We got this wonderful board over here, and I'll explain that in a quick moment, and a computer block as well, which works in conjunction with that. And I really like this cockpit. This has, one of the design aspects to this was I wanted to be able to actually drive this in, first person mode. So the idea here being that I can look around and I can actually see all around me, in front of me, what I'm driving at, and even underneath me, right? I can see kind of the terrain that's around me here as I drive. And then of course you can always jump into third person mode and drive around as well. So one of the features that this thing supports as well is I wrote a little script that allowed me to basically raise and lower this chassis up and off the ground. So when you're parked, so right now you can see my handbrake is on, my chassis is pretty low to the ground, and that allows me to actually walk up onto it using that back ramp. But when I'm ready to drive, I'll turn off my handbrake and I'll run the program. It'll actually raise the whole entire chassis up so that now I have more clearance underneath the Rover. And now I can drive with much more clearance, and it works much better. And then when we're at my destination, I turn on the handbrake and I run the program again, and it drops itself back down, and now you can, you're stopped, and you can, get in and out and do all of the things you needed to do where you are. So that's kind of a fun little thing that I worked on. And so here, let's just go back in really quickly. If you're in first person again, right, I can actually look over at this, and so turn off the handbrake and run the thing, right, and it tells you what you're off, like it shows you what's happening on this display inside of your cockpit, right? And then I had another one over here for if I wanted to do more stuff or whatever for later on. It's just, symmetry. But yeah, so there you go. There is the basics of this Rover and how it works and how it's all put together. And then to quickly show you inside here, you'll see I had some different groups built. So assembling So you'll see here I had the power module attached to the assembler, right? So that was especially really helpful in this rover as well, because originally I didn't have all of those power modules. So I put that on there because power was a real problem for me originally with this rover until I got the entire thing built out. But and until you can find some uranium, it's you're working off of the sunlight. And yeah, so the power module on this was super helpful early game. You'll notice on the refinery I've got 2 power modules and 2 effectiveness modules, which again was, the power was because really early game, again, power was a problem, and also the effectiveness modules meant that whatever I did find in resources, I would get more of them, right? And I found that really valuable on planets, like really valuable. And then there's a bunch of other groups in here. I've tried to keep this fairly organized. You have access to your wheels and all of the settings in here all together. Obviously you can work with each. Oh, I guess it probably should show you that too, how the wheels work, right? So if I turn the wheels, you'll notice that the 2 sets go forward together, and the rotation of the front wheels is more than the rotation on the middle wheels, so it gives you a nice long turning arc. And then one of the other ways I used the wheels was actually the front wheels and the back wheels turning opposite to each other with the middle wheel staying straight. That lets you have a much greater turning arc, a much faster turning arc, which is much nicer when you get into, say, like you're trying to park somewhere where things are really tight. But when you're driving out in the wild, I found this worked really well, as well as with the gyros and then with the flight. So now we can actually motor along, and it works pretty good, and it can pick up some pretty good speed. And I have that maxed out right now at 120 kilometers an hour, because anything faster than that, and I find that it was having some serious trouble not, blowing up. So now you can see flight mode. We can pick it up and we can actually just fly, let's say, over to this lake. And yeah, so this lets you kind of like have multiple ways of getting around. And I found this mode came in quite handy actually. And you can just fly on in, get to where you're going, and obviously you can cover a lot more distance with the atmospheric thrusters and flying as opposed to driving. So that comes in really handy as well. Let's land back down onto the ground, and away we go. Now we can say like, hey, I wanted to go mine this. Actually, I don't think I told you guys as well. There is a an ore detector, which so you're driving along, you can say, oh yeah, there's ice here. But then when you get up to this, you can see, and I use this quite a bit for finding out, oh look, there's magnesium here, and what else do we have in this little, so silicon and nickel. Pull out my hand drill now and start mining, right? And then come back in when I need to. I would drive this normally, what I would do is I would drive this right up to the thing right here where I wanted to mine, and I have the doorway basically opened up right to, and I start like, hand drilling down into the hole, and then when I'd come back up out of the hole, the doorway would be, of the ramp there would be right behind me, and I'd run right up into it, drop off the stuff. Until I had enough resources to then build myself, an atmospheric miner that then you could hook up into the back here. And let's just head on over, let's just see how good this thing can actually go up the side of one of these ramps here. So if I aim for that kind of little thing there. Now if you do have trouble, you can, one thing actually that I should show you is normally how I had this set up here. As you see down here on the bottom, I have increase and decrease power to my wheels, right? So as I would drive along, if I needed more power, I could just hit those buttons to get up the side of a hill, right? So I'll leave that on so you can see what the percentage is, right? So like if I'm driving along here, this probably 40% might not be enough to get up this. So let's see, if I hit this and it starts to slow down, I can just bump up the power as we're going. And hopefully be able to get up the side of this. There we go. So yeah, so you can manipulate the wheel settings to make this work better for you, right? So what I did there is I threw the power as well as the friction settings down there, and now I can adjust that as I need to as I go up the hill. So I made it all the way back up, And away I go. Off to see a new world. If you have any ideas about how to improve the design of the hog, post them in the comments of the video. I look forward to reading them and having an awesome discussion with you all. The Hog Mark 1, 2, and 3 are available on the workshop right now. Check the description for the links. As always, you're free to use it in your own worlds and tinker with it as you please. If you do post a modified version to the workshop, I'd really appreciate you including a link to my original version, as well as letting me know in the comments. I'd love to check it out. So with that, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to give it a like. You'll be letting me know that you're excited for more Space Engineer action and helping to expose the video to more amazing people like you. If you're new to my channel, you might be interested in subscribing, as you'll be notified when I release new videos. At the moment, I'm releasing Space Engineers on Monday and Thursday, Elite Dangerous on Wednesday, Pulsar the Lost Colony on Saturday, and some other fun stuff sprinkled throughout the week. There is a link to my full schedule in the description if you're interested. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. Have an absolute great one, and I'll see you next time.